And for more on the Chinese economy, we're joined by Yan Liang. He's the professor of economics at Willamette University. Good to see you. And, you know, China's economy is, I will say, different than what's happening in the rest of the world. The rest of the world's raising rates. China's keeping rates either the same or stable. And I think part of that is because of the situation of COVID. There's a slight difference in timeline. Where does China stand now?
Good to talk to you, Phil. I think you're right that the Chinese economy, what it needs is really a rebound, a recovery on a more solid ground. So I think for the central bank, they want to balance. On the one hand, they don't want it to, increase too much of credit supply and increase that indebtedness. And also they worried about, too much of depreciation on the yuan. But on the other side, I think fiscal stimulus has been rolling out, and that helped to bolster the economy. So you mentioned about the manufacturing activities are picking up, and that is largely due to, on the one hand, the government public investment has been going up. Infrastructure spending has been bolstered, construction industries and some other industrial production. And also there's some, pent up supply, I would say, coming out of August, when the power crunch and the supply curve has, been faded now. So I think all these contributed to the pleasant surprise of the expansion of factory activities.
We talk about, obviously, the slowdown and what's happening in Europe, plus the potential slowdown here in the U.S. What kind of impact does that have if you're trying to plan for a rebound in manufacturing in China?
Well, of course, what I think is concerning is the export demand. So as we all know, China's export demands have remained really robust, and that really provided a lot of demand support for the Chinese economy and export growth. So if the rest of the world, due to rate hikes and so on, are facing a recession, then that would definitely drag down on China's export demand. But still, I think so far, the export production has been pretty resilient. And I think, with the price competitiveness compared to inflationary pressure all over these advanced countries, I do think that China still has some advantages.
Right. And speaking of inflation, we see, Germany's inflation numbers are off the charts, partly because of energy. We have a problem here in the U.S. You have a problem in the U.K. It's almost the entire world, with the one exception is we scratch our heads as to why we don't see inflationary pressures in China. What did they do right to avoid this problem?
Yeah, I think for one, energy price in China has been stable because China is able to import, for example, Russian oil at a competitive price. So I think that really helped. And also, with food prices have been stabilized. So that also helped to tame down the inflation. On the other hand, though, I think, the less positive about the low inflation has to do with the weak consumer demand. And a lot of that has to do with, COVID restrictions and also the slowdown in the real estate market. That said, I do think that, these two negative impacts on China, I think, are seeing some signs of improvement. So, for COVID restrictions, we have seen some, local governments have gradually relaxing, for example, COVID testing in Zhejiang province. And also for, so I think, there are some improvements there. And for real estate sector, I think a lot of the policies now are being rolled out. And so that also helped to, bolster the real estate sector. For example, the mortgage rate cuts in some of the cities, 23 out of the 70 largest cities are eligible to these mortgage rate cuts for first-time home buyers. And some of the local governments are also really urging the real estate developers to resume the constructions. So I think there are signs that the economy is going to improve.
If I was an investor into China and we wanted to pour the billions of dollars into China, things are opening up, things are relaxing. What are the things that are going to be challenges for the remainder of, I guess, this year and I suppose for the fourth quarter?
Right. So for one, I think the COVID restrictions are still something that present some uncertainty to investors. Also, I think, with the dollar rising, right, in terms of the appreciation of the dollar against the Chinese yuan, there might be some speculative, moves on the part of, the financial markets. I think there are also concerns about, some of these real estate developers or some other companies, whether they're able to, for example, honor their bonds. So I think there are still many uncertainties. But one thing I think that we know is, again, the COVID restrictions are likely to be relaxed over time, and there are other policy measures are going to put in place. So I think investors should remain pretty optimistic about the economy.
All right. Professor Yan Liang, thank you very much for spending some time with us from Willamette University, and have yourself a good weekend.